you remember? Do you remember? I remember all those years.
Oh, I remember.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first ever episode of the Do You Remember podcast. The podcast that will take us back to happier times and hopefully take our mind off everything that's going on at the moment. We're going to do a deep dive back into nostalgia. My name is Adam Anwar and I am your host, and each week we're going to be joined by a different guest talking about something that we've got hopefully a mutual love for from the past. Now today I'm joined by one of the top up and coming comedians from the local scene. I'm joined by Karl Porter.
Hello, my name's Karl Porter. Thank you for having me in these tough times. Thanks very much, Adam.
Haha, no worries, my mate. And today we're going to be talking about WrestleMania 19. So, Karl, for the benefit of those who don't know, give us a little overview. What was WrestleMania 19?
WrestleMania 19 was the biggest event of the wrestling world in 2003. What they do basically, like, it's always a build-up from the Royal Rumble. Say, for example, the main event of WrestleMania, it's always the Royal Rumble winner, and they always get a title shot leading up. Pretty much it's always stacked up to be probably the best card of the year as well. So, very, very good show it was indeed.
There we go. And this was like one of the biggest, not just the biggest show of the year, but this is like one of the biggest shows of all time, because on this card, on this WrestleMania show, is like nearly all of the top wrestling stars from our lifetime, basically. There's very few that are missing off this, but it is an incredible card. So we'll touch on it a little bit beforehand. So how did you first get into wrestling?
I think, to be honest, this was pretty much the first event that I sat down and actually watched pretty much throughout. I think it was just like with my brothers and stuff, like when we were kids, like we kind of like loved to wrestle, saw clips of it and stuff. But then I think we actually wanted to sit down and just watch it. So yeah, for me, this was definitely the first WWE event that I remember sitting down and watching. And
nice one.
Like you said, it didn't disappoint either.
Yeah, and you said like you used to like wrestle around with your brothers. Like I'm guessing that was like in the living room and like in your garden and stuff like that. But what was the appeal for you? What was it about wrestling that made you really connect with it?
I think it was just I don't know, like it was just a whole. Obviously, it was something what could like make like all my brothers like bond and like get along. But in the process, we actually hurt each other a little bit, because I think people seem to forget that, because a lot of people presume wrestling's like fake, and like obviously it's not. I think if you get into it and actually watch it, you obviously find out it's not. And I just think like the whole, like, I don't know, you just feel like a bit of a movie star kind of thing. Just like, the walk-ins, like, just watching wrestlers stand there and a whole audience just be so invested in watching this character. Like, it's great.
Yeah, they are kind of like those, and it was the exact same for me when I was growing up, because I got into it just by complete fluke. I was watching TV with my mum and dad, and I don't know if you remember these wrestlers, but it was Kamala and Doink the Clown, two really cartoonish characters, but I was only about 4 at the time, and they were like chasing each other around the ring. But like the more and more I got into it, the more I grew up, these did become like real life superheroes and like icons for me, and they were like proper cool. Like you said, that movie star factor about them. You used to look at them and go, wow, these guys are not just cool, but a lot of them are really like badass as well.
Yeah, definitely, 100%.
And like when you're a young lad as well, like people hurting each other, I think it really like attracts that masculinity a part of you, doesn't it? And like really magnetizes you to it. Like, yeah, we're going to be kick ass. We're going to be people hurting each other. And you said a lot of people think it's fake, but it is more real than you think. And this card is a real testament to that, and we'll get to that later on in the show. But yeah, so what are some of like your first early, like you said, this is the first card that you remember sitting down and watching, but besides this card, what are like some of your first memories of watching wrestling?
I think it was just watching like the greats and stuff, like The Rock, Stone Cold. Like, probably for me, the Attitude Era was the greatest era of all time. I just think like you said, every single kind of, when the card got lower and lower, it just seemed to be like still at the top level, even though like, there was, you go from WWF title, WWE title, and then you go to like the United States, Intercontinental. Like, it was just all, talent. Talent was just there. You know what I mean? Every single match.
Yeah, the quality of the roster was really, really strong at that point. And this was a time in like, it was like counterculture was becoming really, really big at the time. So like Nirvana was huge in the early 90s. And then people, they really wanted like this rebellious stuff in the media. And it was really attractive, especially to people, like young lads especially. They really were attracted to like the counterculture stuff. And WWE at the
Yeah.
time was really, really going into it, weren't they, with the Attitude Era? Like a lot of like violence and like strong language and nudity and all that stuff.
Yeah, definitely, 100%.
Yeah, man. So, right, let's dive into this card then. Let's dive into WrestleMania 19. We've got the
Let's do
opening
it.
match. Rey Mysterio Jr. versus the Cruiserweight Champion, Matt Hardy. Now, what are your thoughts on this match, or these two guys?
Well, Rey Mysterio, like, was just this guy who just seemed to just fly around the ring, and it was just kind of like, I don't know, it was just kind of moments where, like, you know, he'd be doing backflips and flying in and out the, you know, the rings, and you feel like, what's going on here? Like, can a human do this? But in all honesty, to be fair, like, I remember when the show started with that match, like, I wasn't really taking like a lot of attention into it because it was just more. I think me and my brothers were just pretending to be there ourselves, just in our living room at the time.
Yeah, fair enough. And like, I think you touched on something really, really spot on there with Rey Mysterio, with all of his like special moves it did, because he came from Mexico. They had that lucha libre style, which is a lot different from the traditional American style of wrestling, isn't it? It's a lot more
Yeah,
flashy, it's a
100%.
lot
Yeah.
more high flying. But Rey Mysterio, he kind of looked like me and you at the time because we were kids. And Rey Mysterio, he's a small bloke. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's put a bit of muscle mass on in recent years, or in the years
Yeah, yeah.
subsequent to this. But like, when I first came across Rey Mysterio, it was like in the mid '90s, and he had pretty much the same body as me, and I was a 10-year-old boy, really skinny, really small, but he used to fly around, and he was badass. The moves that he was doing was spectacular. And then you got Matt Hardy on the other side, and this guy again, the kind of the complete opposite. Not really magnificently technically gifted, but he used to put his body through all kinds of stuff in the ladder matches, the table matches, and all this stuff. He was a real daredevil when it came to that ring.
Yeah, I think it was just entertainment as well. Like, he'll give the fans what they want, even if it was putting his life on the line. Like, he'd just jump about, jump off anything. Like, it was kind of mental. You kind of just look at, like, you know, how did they end up like having another match after that? But, you know, they just carried it on through the career. Them type of wrestlers, like, it's crazy.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned that you and your brothers, we weren't really paying too much attention at this point. You're probably still wrestling each other, but you didn't really miss much with this match. It was kind of a basic match. For all that we've hyped these two wrestlers up, they didn't really do much in this match. Matt Hardy got the win and kicked off the show. But next up, we had The Undertaker and his undefeated WrestleMania
You've
streak.
done it now. You're gonna make a big mistake. Badass. Badass
There
back
we
in
go,
the day. And then
American
that was,
badass. Undertaker. He was supposed to be teaming up with Nathan Jones, but Nathan Jones was so bad.
He was terrible.
They had to write a storyline on the day going, do you know what? He's so bad, we can't even put him in the ring with The Undertaker. They wrote him off, they pretended he was beaten up backstage, and it was Undertaker versus Big Show and A-Train in a 2-on-1 handicap match. What do you remember this?
To be fair, I remember like the cameras, like, you know, coming backstage and Nathan Jones being knocked out, and it was kind of like, oh my god, like, you know, we were all like kind of sat in the living room going like, who do you reckon's done him in? Like, that's bad, that though, isn't it? Like, you know, like, but obviously it's all scripted. But us being kids were so like drawn into it. It was pretty mad as well because the Undertaker, like that character, he was like, it wasn't the Phenom, it was obviously the badass, and he was only around for a few years, to be fair. But I think people at the time didn't really think about the undefeated streak at the time. I feel like probably everyone betted it against him, and you know, two massive guys like Big Show and A-Train coming at you, like you feel like he's going to lose. But yeah, but I'm pretty sure he come back, Nathan Jones, in the end, and like did his famous kick. Like
He did, yeah. That's how stupid the storyline was of him being beaten up backstage. That all of a sudden he's miraculous and he's better, and he's going to try and join in, and he does, I think, like a spin kick on one of them or something. But that was about the entirety of his contributions to the wrestling industry. But yeah, you mentioned like you were kids and you were buying into it, and that is the best time as a wrestling fan, and that's why I wanted to do this nostalgia podcast, because I want to look back at the times where like things were better. Like, you can watch wrestling now, but because you don't believe like you did then, it's not as good. But when you used to believe as a kid, it was mint, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was best. It was like standing in the living room with like belt on one shoulder, like, yeah, I'd do these guys in me, but obviously he wouldn't. But it was, I think, yeah, Undertaker back then was like, I think it just his title there, badass. Like, just didn't care, man. Like driving around, coming down on a bike, like legendary.
And this was like during the Iraq War as well, and there was a very like much a sentiment of like patriotism in America. I mean, there always is in America, but like specifically at this time, and like I think he was waving the American flag after the match. Undertaker ended up winning, but I always thought it was a bit of a waste, this one, because we just mentioned Undertaker's undefeated streak. It wasn't as big of a deal back then as it became in later years, but for an Undertaker WrestleMania match, for people who aren't wrestling fans, an Undertaker WrestleMania match is like the big thing. It's like the big blow-off event of the year, and the Undertaker's like one of the biggest wrestlers they've got, and you want to have him in a real marquee match. You want him to have it against someone really, really good, and they put him against Big Show and A-Train, which Big Show is quite a well-known name, but A-Train's, in the grand scheme of things, isn't too well-known, and this match itself wasn't very good, was it?
No, it wasn't very good, and like you said, Undertaker, like he's one of the greatest of all time, and have him so down the card, like not even like mid-card, just like so near the beginning, it's like unheard of kind of thing with Undertaker. Like, he must have just been, I don't know, like very, like they just didn't have a storyline for him to like, and they just thought, I'll just chuck him in.
Yeah, it was like a second thought, wasn't it? Like, oh, we've got a WrestleMania card. Oh, should we? Undertaker's not got a match. We'll just put him in against whoever's not got a match. Big Show and A-Train, that'll do. Put Nathan Jones in there, even though they ended up writing that off. But yeah,
that's what I mean. They're all the lucky ones.
Yeah, I thought it was a bit of a waste, right? So, next match, triple threat match for the WWE Women's Championship. You had Victoria defending against Jazz and one of the all-time favourites, Trish Stratus.
Trish, I don't really, like, I remember just not really paying attention to, like, who was going to win. I was just more paying attention, like, at my age, it's like, you see women, like, kind of on top of each other and chucking each other around. It's kind of, at that time, you're like, oh, Jesus, so this is what women is, you know what I mean? Women are, like...
Yeah, because how old were you at the time?
So I would have been 10. Yeah, like coming 11 near the end of the year. But yeah, I was 10 when, because WrestleMania is always around April time.
Yeah, so as a 10-year-old boy, and you're watching like three scantily clad women in the ring, I suppose you're not really going to be too invested in the actual contest itself, or should I say like staged contest. But I mean, it was an okay match. This was a period of time when in women's wrestling it wasn't as good as it is now. It's a lot better now, and the women athletes are actually really, really good now in comparison. But back in those days, they weren't that good. But these three women, they could go. And Trish Stratus, she's very much a favourite of a lot of people. Victoria was good, and Jazz was also very good. The match itself was decent. Trish ended up getting a win and winning the belt. But, I mean, there's no real too big of memories of this match, is there?
No, I think it's just Trish, for me. She were in the match, in it, you know, no disrespect to, like, Victoria or Jazz, but it's just like Trish was, like, the icon woman back then, I guess. So... yeah, she was like the kind of money on the match, and the belt as well. To be fair, like I think that's like the best women's belt I've ever had. To be fair,
yeah, the design of it, I'm quite a fan of the old belts, and I think I agree with you. That women's title belt from that time and that era, it's the best design they've ever had. Do you remember when they had the butterfly one? How terrible that was!
It was just it kind of got to a point where like. Because like social media and everything came about, you know, more than it is back then, and just for show, really. Like it wasn't really like because that woman's belt at WrestleMania 19, that was a proper wrestling belt, like proper design belt and stuff. But yeah, I think that Nikki Bella had that one, didn't she? The butterfly one. That was pretty stupid.
Next up, we had the triple threat WWE Tag Team Championship match. The champions, Team Angle, Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin defended against Chris Benoit, Rhino and Los Guerreros, Chavo Guerrero and Eddie Guerrero. Now, what star power in this match? You got Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero, both would be world champions this time next year, and you got them in a tag team match.
Like the thing is with these matches, like tag team, because there's so many people involved. Like there's always just so much going on, so it's just so exciting. Like just there's always stuff going outside the ring, in the ring, like always near the announce tables. And like you said, like the talent is just like. Because back then, like definitely for me, like the Guerreros were like my favorite tag team, just because how just kind of like badass they were. Like it's in their kind of like they lie, cheat, and steal. Like so, it's always like cool to see them kind of just like get one over.
What antics are they going to get up to this week?
Yeah, 100%. Like you're just waiting for it. Like it's always going to come, but you just don't know when. And they just pull it off so well.
Yeah, Eddie Guerrero used to have some absolutely fantastic little bits, didn't he? Where he used to like cheat and then pretend he wasn't
Well,
cheating and pretend the other guy was cheating and all that stuff. And you're right, with these multi-man tag matches, they are all over the place and there's action going all over the place. And WWE, one thing they don't get credit for is how good their camera work is, because they make
yeah.
every single thing and then they go back to the next thing, so you're ready to see the next big move and stuff like that. So basically every second you're seeing some high spot and it's fantastic.
Yeah, and I feel like it's mad because like sometimes you feel like there's always going to be a pin, and then like out of nowhere, it's just someone just dives off the rope to break it up, or just comes in within literally a second.
Yeah,
like,
and they'll make sure they're not filming him in the camera shot, won't they? So like for you've not seen him, he's just come out of nowhere for you, hasn't he? Whereas if you're in the arena, you can probably see him coming.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like you always just think, oh, it's not going to end this match, because to be fair, like I don't think this match actually went on for more than I don't think it was like 10-15 minutes, but
No, it's about 9 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, because the thing is, these matches, because there's so much going on, like you just kind of forget, and like you don't realise it's gone so quick. Like it doesn't really need like a half an hour.
Yeah, because there's so many men in it, they can pack so much into like such little time, can't they? Because like when one guy's getting his rest, the others can be at it.
I'm pretty sure like Kurt Angle, was it Kurt Angle, Benoit, and Guerrero? Was it a triple threat one WrestleMania?
I don't think so, no.
Or was it? Might have been Chris Jericho instead of one of them. But it's just like these three of the kind of most technical, gifted wrestlers
at some point, Jericho, Angle, and Benoit they had a triple threat match for the European title and the Intercontinental title, and the first fall was for one belt, and the second fall was for another belt.
Yeah,
and that was a great match. But I can't remember.
It might have been
a
few years ago, like 16 or 17, I think.
Oh, WrestleMania 2000, of course. WrestleMania 16, Angle,
16,
Benoit,
yeah.
Jericho. Yeah, that is an absolutely great match. That's a legendary match, that.
Yeah, I don't know, like my opinion, I feel like Chris Benoit's like the best technical wrestler they've had. I just think like everyone puts the bodies on the line, but just what he does, like he doesn't care like if he's gonna like collapse or get knocked out or anything. Like he'll just go all out.
Well, that's the really sad thing, isn't it? That Benoit, he was so good in the ring, but then obviously the way his life ended and what he did on his final weekend, it's kind of wiped out everything for him, hasn't it? But have you seen the documentary on it that Vice did recently?
I haven't, no.
It's really good. You should watch it. Me, Keith Wilde, and Jordan Deshawn were talking about it recently. Yeah, and it's really good. It's a two-parter. You see Benoit's surviving son, the one that's still living. You see his wife's sister talking about it. It's a very emotional watch.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, because it's mad now, because he's kind of like erased from WWE.
Definitely, they basically erased him from the very next day. But once they'd found out, they were like, right, let's distance ourselves from this, and you can't blame them really. But to just talk about him in the moment and just as a pure athlete and as a performer, he was absolutely brilliant at what he did in the ring. He was phenomenal. But
yeah,
that probably fed into what he did in the end. It's a tough one.
Yeah, it would have just all just hit him at once, kind of thing, all built up, and because so many wrestlers die like at a young age, like Eddie Guerrero as well. Like he was it a year before it, 2 years before?
Yeah, Guerrero died, I think, in about 2006, and I think Benoit died in about 2007. So yeah, it wasn't very very far separated at all.
Yeah, I was really emotional, to be fair, when Eddie died. I mean, I was only young, but I think because like it was like I liked him so much as a wrestler and like followed his career when I was like growing up and stuff. Like it was just like they're not invincible. You know what I mean?
I can still remember it now. I was sat in the armchair in my parents' house, facing the TV, and I had on Sky Sports News, yeah?
Yeah.
And at the bottom of the screen, it came up WWE, and I was like, what? WWE's never on Sky Sports News, especially in these days, 2005, they were never on Sky Sports News.
Yeah, football.
So straight away, my eyes was drawn to that WWE at the bottom, so I'm looking at it. WWE superstar Eddie Guerrero found dead, aged, I think, like 43 or something like that.
Yeah, it was like...
Wow, and without saying anything, I got up, and I went, and my mum was like, where are you going? And I was just putting my shoes on. I was like, I'm going to Gary's, and Gary lived like 2 doors down, and Gary was a big wrestling fan as well, my mate Gaz. Shout out to Gaz, and I went and knocked on his door, and I was like, Eddie Guerrero's died, and he's like, what? And I was like, yeah, Eddie Guerrero's died, and we couldn't believe it. We just stood there like, just both in shock, just stood looking at each other, going, and we thought, oh, it's probably something to do with steroids or something like that, but he used to be a drug addict. We thought he might have had an overdose. We were just complete shock.
Yeah, it was. I think that was like the first kind of like, in like sport kind of thing. I was just like, not obviously like hearing the news. It was just it was a lot to take in really. I think like I remember like my twin brother came home. I think we just like put his song on and that. I was just like kind of just sat there like.
I've just looked. He was 38 years old. I can't believe that he was only 38.
Jesus, that's wow. Like I thought he was definitely in his 40s. Like rest in peace, Eddie, man, legend.
Yeah, he was a proper legend, and he's one of the guys as well that is so beloved by like the fans and the wrestlers. Still, people will still like chant his names at wrestling events, and like there's certain moves like the Three Amigos or the Frog Splash. If anyone does that, people will chant "Thank you, Eddie." He's like a proper legend in the wrestling industry.
Yeah, hero, man. Love him.
But yeah, this was a good tag team match as well. Team Angle ended up getting the win. Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin. Charlie Haas is a bit of a sad story. I don't know if you know this, but Charlie Haas and again, this will be a bit close home to you because you got a twin brother. Charlie Haas and his twin brother Russ Haas. I think it was a twin anyway. But basically, they were brothers and they were a tag team. And his brother Russ died like really young at like age 22, 23.
Oh Jesus, no, I didn't know that.
So like they were supposed to be like the tag team, the Haas brothers, and like if you watch his old matches, I think he has like RH like written on his like wristbands and stuff like that. He'd write on every match and like remember his brother. But yeah, so that's like another sad story in wrestling. But he died really young, and I'm not really too sure what that was to do with. I think he might have had a heart condition.
Well, again, like I mean, the like Team Angle, like brilliant tag team, man. Shelton Benjamin, like so gifted, as well as Haas as well. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah, just looking at it now, he's 27, and yeah, I think he was his twin brother because they spit an image of each other.
20, I'm 27. It's like, what is going on? I feel like you're just getting into something like wrestling or in like football or anything,
Yeah, exactly.
27.
Yeah, I think I'm just looking at they were about a year apart in birth, and yeah, can you imagine that? Just it's weird, man. And then obviously he goes out to live his and his brother's dream. He becomes the pro wrestler and he wins multiple championships. But he's teaming not with his brother, he's teaming with Shelton Benjamin, who they made a fantastic team together. But obviously for him, never replaced his brother.
No, 100%, yeah.
But right, the next match, a proper legendary match now. You've got Shawn Michaels versus Chris Jericho. The story in the build-up to this one was Jericho was saying that I used to idolise you, Shawn Michaels. I wanted to grow up to be you. And now we are on the same level. We're not just on the same level. We're not just peers. We're not just co-workers and colleagues. But I'm better than you, Shawn Michaels, and I'm going to prove it on the grandest stage of them all. I'm going to prove it at WrestleMania. And this was an absolutely brilliant match. What do you remember about this one, Karl?
Well, Shawn Michaels, I mean, it's one of the greatest, if not the greatest ever. I think his career was so good. Like, I think that with Chris Jericho, like, it was just pure jealousy, obviously, like how popular was Shawn Michaels. And obviously, it wasn't long ago that Shawn Michaels actually came back from an injury, like nearly 5-year injury. And I just remember watching the match fully, really, because it was just kind of like, I felt like it was so personal. And they just didn't like each other one bit. But yeah, I think obviously WrestleMania is like, you always got to, like, Shawn Michaels always pops into your head when WrestleMania comes about. And yeah, like you said, it was an absolute brilliant match. Could have even main evented, to be honest. It was that good.
Definitely. And this is the point in the card, and this is the point in the show where they start to blend reality with the storylines, because it's a true thing that Jericho did idolise Shawn Michaels, and he did think he was now on Shawn Michaels' level, and here we are, we were going to get them at WrestleMania, and they brought Shawn Michaels' wife into the storyline. Shawn Michaels' wife used to be a Nitro girl on WCW Nitro, which is a show Chris Jericho used to work on, so Jericho probably knew Michaels' wife before he did, and now obviously then he's using her as a pawn in the storyline. And it was, I wasn't really watching it this time, but from the promo packages and stuff like that I've seen, it was a good storyline building up to it, and it was a really, really good match. Shawn Michaels ended up getting the win, and it was so cinematic at the end, where Michaels gets the win, and then they stood facing each other, and Michaels, shakes his hand, and they give each other a hug. And just when we think all's well in the world, boom, Jericho nails him in the balls. Michaels hits the deck, and Jericho comes out of this looking better than he went into it. And then that's a very rare thing in wrestling, because everyone knows it's scripted, and if you're scripted to lose, you're always seen as the lesser one because the company don't believe in you. But Jericho came out of this looking like he was on Shawn Michaels' level, and that is a rare thing. And Shawn Michaels, I think, really made Jericho on this night.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like, that ending bit with him, because I remember like when he needed him balls and he just like fell on him and he just like grabbed his face and just pushed it to the floor like, you're nothing, mate. And it's just like, that like you feel like it was just going to be friends and then that was it. But yeah, it was a sweet moment, I thought. And then he just walked out.
And it was a very relatable thing, like you said, that they played up the jealousy aspects of it, that Jericho was jealous of Shawn Michaels, and Shawn Michaels had this career, and then he finally thinks, I'm going to prove myself, but he doesn't prove himself, and he thinks, you know what, I'm going to have the last laugh there, and bam, he nails him. And honestly, it's a pretty much a perfect wrestling match for me. I think this is from beginning to end, not just the match itself, but the end part as well, where we see this. I thought it was an absolutely amazing bit of wrestling.
Yeah, you get so invested in it. With like, you just like, because I remember like when he did that, and I was like, look at him, arsehole him. He's got beat, mate. Like, you're nothing. Like, and it's just like, Carl, it's scripted. Calm down. Just like, yeah, but I'm drawn into it. I'm drawn into these.
Hey, you were 10 years old as well. That is the time to believe. That is the time to really believe. Well, here's a good question, actually. Here's a good time to touch on it. When was the point in wrestling that you remember you properly realised? Because I think we always knew, but like, when did you properly realise that, right, this is scripted?
I think it was just like one of my older brothers, to be fair, because I was just proper like jumping around every time, like, like if a wrestler won or anything like that. It probably was when I was in high school, I think, and they just kind of said, yeah, it's not real, kind of thing. And
16-year-old Carl still jumping up and down.
Yeah, literally, like still with t-shirts on, smashing cans together, like pretending I'm Stone Cold and that. And everyone's like, "Grow up, mate! Like it's scripted." And I was just like, I probably even go up to all the wrestlers and say, "Come on, guys, it's not." And just like, it's scripted. You can get out my locker room. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Yeah, it was my older brothers, really.
I remember for me, like my parents from like a very young age, they told me, because like you said that you used to wrestle around with your brothers. I tried wrestling around with my sister when I was like maybe 6 and she was 3 or something. And my mum was like, no, you are never going to do this ever again. Never do it. And she really scared me off that. But she said, listen, it's fake. Don't be trying this stuff. These have trained at it. They would get really, really hurt if it was real. And they're basically scripting it all out. So I knew from a young age, but I denied it. Even though she gave me those facts, I denied it for as long as I could. But I remember it was 2000, right? It was the year 2000. And Triple H was against Mick Foley at No Way Out in a Hell in a Cell match.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
If Mick Foley lost, he had to retire. And I was telling everyone, Mick Foley's going to win. And I know he's going to win because they're not going to script it so he loses, because they want to keep him around. So at that point, I accepted it was fake and I accepted it was scripted. And then I got home and I watched it and he lost. And I was gutted. I was like, what? Because I was so invested in like Mick Foley beating Triple H at the time. Even though I was starting to appreciate that it was scripted, I was so gutted still.
It was mad because like every time like there's always like an advert, or they go to an interval or something. They always had that like same advert come up, like, don't try this at home, and it was like, nah, whatever, mate. Like,
don't try this at home.
That's like the biggest hint ever. Like, don't try it at home, mate, because it's it's not to try at home. It's like, mate, I'll do it.
It's never going to work, is it? Everyone's always got to try it at home, because me and my mates used to wrestle around all the time. I remember one time we played out a full show in like my mate's garden. There was one time when I was in primary school and all the boys had a Royal Rumble in the shed and we just threw each other out the shed. And I remember there used to be a sand pit. Sorry, mate.
No, it's cool.
A sand pit a street away on the playing fields, so people could do long jump. And like, I remember we used to wrestle around in that. One time, one of my mates, I think my mate Carter, bulldog my mate Stu Harding, boom into the sand, and he had his nose all bust with sand stuck to his bloody nose. Oh, it's horrible. But these are the fun memories. But I know you used to wrestle around with your brothers a lot, didn't you?
Yeah, one time I got last rided through my mum's bed.
Through a bed.
Yeah, genuinely, it was like 2 last rides. So like, because I'm a bit of a shitbag when it comes to heights and stuff. So anytime I get picked up or anything, I'm always like, whoa, like just trying to hang on to something. He's like, get off, I've got you, or like whatever. Like it was like a suplex or F5, FU, or anything, and then like pick me up and like. But I was that much of a shitbag when it comes to the last ride. I used to kind of like let him kneel down and just put my legs over his shoulders so then he can just pick me up instead of like putting his head between my things and then picking me up like that. And then he kind of last rided me like through the bed, but like I didn't really do it right because obviously the Undertaker's move, like the whole point is like to lift you up and then slam you down, but I didn't do it first time. I hit the bed kind of like shake a little bit, but my brother was like, "Nah, go on, do it again." And then like he proper did it like that, and just straight through like that. And next thing you just hear my mum like, "What was that?" I'm just like KO'd in the bed like, and he's like, "Oh, it wasn't me," and he just ran off. And I just
what does Mum say when she walks upstairs and she sees Karl half knocked out in the middle of her broken bed?
I still get the blame. Literally, like it's mad because like me and my twin brother, like he was the only one who got away with it because he had top bunk as well. My mum was tiny, so I kind of felt like my mum couldn't be asked climbing up the ladder just to give him a good hiding. She'd just say, he's easy, he's just airing it. So just give it me, and it's like it was him. It's like, yeah, that's what you would say, wouldn't you? And I'm like, what? Yeah, but it was worth it when I look back.
Oh, definitely. You can't trade those times because those times when you believe it's real and you're wrestling around with like your mates or your brothers in your case, it's just those are the days, aren't they? Those are just the days.
Yeah, 100%, man.
Right, so next up we had the singles match for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. The champion Triple H with Ric Flair at his side took on Booker T, and again they blended in reality into this storyline. And the story going into it was Triple H. He used a lot of kind of racial overtones in this, and Booker T's a black man. He would say stuff like "people like you." People like you can't beat people like me. And they brought up the fact that Booker T's an ex-con and that he spent time in prison, I think, for robbery or maybe even armed robbery. And they really blended in that reality. And a lot of people at the time, and a lot of people afterwards, really kicked off about this because Triple H really, really put Booker T down so much. They thought, right, he's got to get his comeuppance. It's scripted after all. They've got to script it for Booker T to win. But they didn't. They scripted for Triple H to win. And for people who don't know, Triple H is real life married to Stephanie McMahon, the boss's daughter. So he's got a kind of word in what... Exactly. So he can choose kind of, to an extent, who wins. And they kind of feel like he used his influence to make sure he won this one. So there's a lot of people not too happy with that, especially with the build-up. But what do you remember about this Booker T Triple H match?
Well, it's mad that because obviously, like, before you watch the matches and stuff, they always show like the promo, like the build-up and stuff. And I do remember like that, watching bits of like, bringing him up like he's, you kind of people, and it was just like you proper like took heart, and it was just like, is this how personal it can get and stuff? And it was kind of cool when you found out he was in prison. It was like badass, love it. But yeah, I think with the match with Triple H, like for me, he was probably like back then probably the best kind of like heel that the company had. I just feel like he just made it all look natural, like how good he was at it. And I think the most annoying thing, like back then, like he had Ric Flair, like helping him out. Like there's so many matches, like I despised him winning because it was just like he only won because of Ric Flair, but because he was so good at it, like people hated him for it. But like that's how good he was at playing a heel.
Definitely, and like I mentioned before, this was at a time when I'd kind of checked out from watching wrestling. It's 2003, so at the time I would have been about 15. So I was too busy playing out with my mates and all that stuff. So I still loved wrestling, but we didn't have Sky TV, so I couldn't really watch it too much when I was available. So then, because I only had limited time to watch it, I didn't really seek it out. But watching this stuff and the little bits that I did watch, Triple H was such a good bad guy at the time. He was such a great heel, and I really, really did hate him. And anytime I did watch it, I couldn't wait. I really wanted to see the good guy beat him. And I think that might have been a part of the reason why I stopped watching, was because he would never lose. He would just beat everyone carte blanche. And I was really, really against that. But yeah, he was a really, really good heel. And at some point, I'd like to think I'm going to go back and watch over all this stuff and just really get to appreciate how good of a worker he was.
Yeah, I feel like, because I mean, he did lose now and again, like the title, but he'd always just win it back, like literally, like within a flash kind of thing. You look and he's like, he's a champion, because I'm pretty sure he won that world heavyweight belt like in a few years. Because I think he was the first one who got it given to him in 2002, and then within like 4 years, he won it like 7 times or something. Like
That's
he just
right.
won it,
That's
like,
right. It was another part of that, how much of a bad guy he was. He didn't even win the title the first time. Eric Bischoff just opened the briefcase and gave it to him, and that's how he became their first world heavyweight champion. And it was like, what?
Like the mad thing with that match as well is like no disrespect to like Booker T or anything, but like it was kind of like Triple H and Undertaker was in the same boat. There's such like big names, like you didn't expect him to face that sort of like person on the biggest stage of them all, kind of thing.
True, but to an extent, if Booker T would have won this, he would have been seen on such a higher level, and they could have made like... Because Booker T, he's quite well respected anyway as like a top wrestler, but he never really did it in the WWE. He never really hit that top level. But like you were saying before about him going to prison, and it's like a cool backstory. He was like a really good example of someone who can really turn his life around. You know, he came from a really disadvantaged background, a really poor family. Dad wasn't on the scene. Mum died at a young age. There's about 7 brothers or something like that. Then he goes to prison, and then him and his brother, once he gets out of prison, they become wrestlers, and then they end up getting hired by WCW. Then WCW goes under, and then WWE take him on, even though all the rest of the top stars, they don't really take them on at the time. They take Booker T on. And yeah, he is really a really good example of someone who can turn their life around, coming from such poor background. But, I mean, he was very physically gifted, isn't he? He's about 6'5" or something, built like a brick shit house. So I suppose it's easier to make something of your life when you're that athletically gifted.
Yeah, it would have been like, probably would have had his own wing or something in prison. He was that massive.
Carl's having prison fantasies now, Booker T, isn't he?
Just like him walking through the wing like, "Can you dig it, sucker?" And everyone's like, just like, get out of the way, man. Doing
such a great tune as well, wasn't it? Like his intro.
Yeah. It was so
cool.
like, it just got you in the mood. It just got you like bouncing, like, oh, it's kicking off now.
Yeah, but yeah, this match, it was decent. It wasn't as great as it could have been, but it was decent. It was good enough, and Triple H got the win.
Muppet. No, I'm joking.
Next up, we had Hulk Hogan in a street fight. Hulk Hogan in a street fight against Mr. McMahon. Again, they blended reality with storyline here. The reality in the storyline, it was that Vince McMahon was claiming that he made Hulkamania, and Hogan was saying that he made Vince McMahon. And it's kind of both true to an extent, and they both made each other as big as they both became, and they were both there for each other in a certain point in life that really helped each other get to the next level. And then it was a street fight, and 2 fellas of a certain age as well. So, Carl, Hulk Hogan, Mr. McMahon, what do you remember of this one?
To be fair, it was like the first match I witnessed, like, with just blood everywhere. And, like, I think this is where it kind of, like, got me, like, thinking, oh, this is, like, real. Like, this is, like, people, like, literally will kill themselves to get whatever they want to try and win a match.
This is the match that really hooked you into pro wrestling?
Yeah, 100%. I feel like it was... as soon as you started seeing what was going on, like the brutality with, like, chair shots and just using anything just to try and keep the opponent down, and like considering who it was as well, like talking about 2 men who were like, in the 50s, like near the 60s maybe, like old men, like just brutalising each other. 2
older blokes, not just that, but 2 blokes with nothing to prove. Hulk Hogan, arguably the biggest star in the history of professional wrestling, and then Vince McMahon, a legitimate billionaire. Like, he is the maddest billionaire on the planet, because no other billionaire will put themselves through this much agony and stress. But they did it for the entertainment of the fans, and to kind of prove a point. Like, listen, we did it. We can both got our own lanes in what we do, but we can do this stuff as well, and we can do it better than anyone. Whether they did it better than anyone was a different matter, but they give it a good bloody bash, didn't they?
Jesus, yeah, like just beginning to end, like, and it was like watching the promo before as well. Like, when I was watching it, I was just like, like getting caught involved, and like just so much going on behind the scenes. It was just like, this is personal. Like, these 2 absolutely despise each other, and I was just like, I think they just genuinely want to kill each other, and they pretty much did that in the match where, jumping off ladders, like using chair shots to the head, like
Definitely, that's one thing they don't do anymore. And when I was watching it back this week, I watched it back for this podcast, so when we were discussing it, I could have a better remembrance of it. And man, these chair shots to the head, not just McMahon and Hogan, but there was one time when I think Hogan tried to hit McMahon, McMahon moved, and he nailed the Spanish announcer, and I was like, what is going on? These are mad chair shots to the head, which nowadays they completely won't let them do because of what happened with Chris Benoit, and they're really hypersensitive around the whole issue of concussions. But in this match, they let them fly.
Yeah, they didn't. They didn't literally care. And going back on that chair shot to the announcer, good shot to be fair. Yeah, like I think that was definitely the first match I kind of sat and watched and thought, yeah, this is definitely not fake. This is real. This is legit. And yeah, I think it was just on the edge of your seat.
100%. I wouldn't want to put my body through it. I mean, have you tried wrestling before? Because I've done it once.
To be fair, like one of my good friends from uni, he's actually a wrestler.
All right, okay. What's his name?
So his name's Alan Thomas. He's Welsh. His name's Alan Thomas, and his wrestling name's Rarebit. So he's a heel more than anything. And another guy called Jack Johnson as well. One of his mates I met through him. He's top as well. And yeah, like it's mad because I did go and meet them both. Like there's a facility they use at a gym, actually in Lower Broughton in Salford. Like it's literally about a 10-minute walk from my house. And like we trained there, and it was mad because like he said, just turn up and have a watch because they were so like, saying to me like, oh, do it, man. You'd be good at it. Like, I think you'd be sick on the microphone. Like you kind of have a good build to kind of get into it and stuff. And like I don't know, like I feel like if I wanted to get into it, I would have done it like a lot sooner. But yeah, so I went down and the training ended up getting cancelled in the end. So it was just two of my mates.
No way.
Yeah, and like, but then they said. The guy who owned it, he just said, "Oh, just have a play around or whatever, just have a bit of fun in that." So I got in the ring, and I remember just like getting sidewalk slam, like just basic moves, and I was like, "Oh, it's gonna hurt this," but like because they've been doing it for quite a bit of time, they probably know how to execute the moves so they don't hurt, and like it was kind of it was fun to be fair. I was just like, "Wow, it's not as bad," but obviously it would be bad if you're doing it like full time stuff, but like I had fun though doing it, like just a bit of messing around kind of thing.
That's it. When I went, I was training with people who like just started and they didn't know how to do it. So like, oh my god, my head was rattling all over the place. I had a banging headache afterwards when I came back from it.
Yeah.
And like, my body wasn't too sore to be fair. It was just my head, and I just thought, oh, I can't be doing that. I barely did anything today. And like, I can only imagine doing it every single day for the next 30, 40 years. And then the proper graft of being on the road, because we know what it's like. Just as a comedian, we don't have to do anything to our body physically, but you're going all over the place for like little to no payment. Can you imagine doing that as a wrestler and having to rely on someone else to keep you safe as well? Oof.
Yeah,
it's a rough lifestyle. And that's why I really respect anyone who properly does it, man.
Yeah, 100%. Because it only takes like one move or one mistake just to cost someone. Like maybe it's not wrestling again or being out for a long
paralysis,
time. So, yeah.
People can die. There's so much that can go wrong, and like just pure respect. And that's why McMahon and Hogan, they really earned a lot of people's respect in this match. I think mad spots like you said, like McMahon doing Hogan's finisher, the leg drop off the ladder through the table on Hogan. Just it was a proper back and forth match. And to talk back, we mentioned the cinematic moments in wrestling, something that they don't get credit for. Do you remember that moment where Vince McMahon goes under the ring for a lead pipe, and then the camera captures
back up?
Yeah. The camera captures it perfectly. His eyes come up above the ring, and he's got this maniacal smile and grin on his face because he's going to do Hogan some damage with the pipe. That is proper box office.
That's like when you sat watching that. Like I remember, like just like nudging me, going, look at that! Oh my god, he's going to kill him! Like a killer look. I was just like. Wow, he's definitely going to end his life.
It was crazy.
Yeah, brilliant. No? Just Vince though, like that smile he's got, like, very evil.
Can you imagine working for him though? Like he always says that, I will never ask my staff to do anything that I wouldn't do myself. But he'll do some crazy stuff himself, so of course he's going to ask you to do some crazy stuff. I can't imagine being one of those wrestlers and he's going to listen. What I want you to do is throw yourself off this ladder and bleed all over them. I'm like, mate, I just want to have a nice night at work, never mind all this stuff.
Yeah, and he's just looking at him like, listen, mate, I'm old enough to be your dad. I've just done it. Grow up. You know what I mean? You're just like, yep, okay, you're the boss.
Yeah, exactly.
Mental.
Right, penultimate match of the night. One of the biggest rivalries in pro wrestling history coming to a head again. We talk about that mixture of realism and showmanship. The Rock versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. The story going into it was Austin's beaten The Rock twice before at WrestleMania in
He
the
has.
previous two encounters.
Yeah.
Rock's never beaten him at WrestleMania. This is it. This is the trilogy bout. This is the last time they're ever going to face each other. They've got this love-hate relationship in real life where they're competitive rivals. They've got to work with each other and keep themselves safe, but at the same
Yeah.
time, they both want to be the man. Now they're going to face each other for the very last time. WrestleMania 19, penultimate match. The Rock versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. And there's a little tidbit for you. In the
Go on.
build-up to this match, they thought Stone Cold Steve Austin might have to pull out of it because he had almost had a heart attack a few days before and ended up in hospital because he was drinking too many energy drinks.
Oh, gee, I didn't know that. Wow.
And also, can you imagine this? And also, this was his last ever match.
It was
But
indeed, yeah.
he didn't tell anyone beforehand because he didn't think he could deliver to the level that would be expected of a last match. So he wanted to just go out there. No one expected. I mean, already the stakes are quite high because it's a WrestleMania match and it's the penultimate match. It's against The Rock, your all-time rival.
Yeah,
He
definitely.
didn't want to put that extra element on top and that extra pressure on himself. And they went out and they had a really good match. You could tell they were having fun out there as well, the way that Rock put on Austin's jacket at one point. It was a fun match. What did you reckon?
I mean, Stone Cold back then was like my favourite wrestler of all time. Like, any time I got the chance, I would just walk around get a crate of Sprite or something from the shop and just boom, just stand on top of my fence, just pouring, as if it was going to get me pissed, even though it was fizzy pop. And it's just
You should do
me
that now
brother
for
would,
promo shots for comedy. I'd love to see that.
Oh mate, I do it, mate. I'm still invested in that stuff, mate. Never gets old with me. It's my twin brother would be blasting his theme tune out the bedroom window at the top, and I'd just be walking around the garden Stone Cold get on top of it. Neighbours just looking at us what are you doing? And I was just I will do anyone, mate. I'm not But yeah, the match itself, I mean, probably the biggest rivalry in wrestling, in my opinion. I think them two wrestlers alone probably got the likes of me and you just drawn into wrestling, and many people as well. And I just think
we were very lucky that in our generation we got two. People call them once in a lifetime talents, but we had two once in a lifetime talents at the same time. Rock and Austin, two guys who were proper massive. With Rock being in Hollywood now, everyone thinks that he was the biggest star in wrestling, but he wasn't. Austin was the biggest star. Austin was the man. He was the one selling all the pay-per-views. He was selling all the merchandise, but Rock was right there with him all the way through.
Yeah, it's very rare. People will say Cena did a decade of carrying the company and stuff, but these two, it's never going to happen again. I don't think because anytime these two got in a ring or you saw him on screen, everyone was just going wild. It was just never going to get bored
magic,
of
the chemistry.
Even just standing there in the ring before they even started talking, staring each other down, pretending to as if they're going to wrestle. It's just oh my god, I love it. You never want it to end, kind of thing. But yeah, I think the match itself being Stone Cold's last match, and obviously it was Rock was leaving as well, pretty much because he was just starting to get massive in Hollywood.
He was, yeah.
I don't think people, like you said, no one really looked at it as if it's their last matches. They just kind of thought it's the Rock and Austin at WrestleMania.
I mean, this is basically, as far as WrestleManias go, in my opinion, this is the end of an era because you get Austin and Rock for the last time. It's basically it's the Rock's last ever singles match. I know it's not because he had some with Cena later on, but that was after his wrestling career, in my opinion. That was bonus. You have Hulk Hogan versus Vince McMahon, which is this Hulk Hogan's last ever WrestleMania match? I think it very possibly might be.
Yeah, I think he come back 2 years later, when he saved Eugene, but it wasn't a match really. It was just to get him on the, just to get him, the company money and stuff, and get people surprised and stuff. But them two itself,
And you'd had Rock and Austin since about 96, 97. They were just making a name for themselves in those years. And by 98, 99, when they were starting to get really thick and fast with it, now we're rolling around to 2003. You mentioned the Attitude Era was what really dragged us in as being fans. And now it's the
Yeah,
end of that era. And it's kind of that bittersweet thing as a wrestling fan because what you love is kind of ending. It stayed being good afterwards, but what you loved is gone.
yeah. Like you said, we were lucky enough to kind of like start watching wrestling when these came about, and it was just like, yeah, like it was kind of bittersweet, like you said. But yeah, like again, main event material, The Rock. Like they could have main evented every single WrestleMania when they were rivalry, and like no one would have
Definitely.
got bored. It would just been like, let's just watch these go at it, and it was a good match to be fair. Wasn't
It was
like so
they,
called
they
like,
traded finishes back and forth.
yeah, that was cool because like you see wrestlers doing that nowadays, and it's just like these two just sold it so well. Like, yeah, it was brilliant,
Yeah,
man.
it was special when they did it because no one really used to do it before them. But now it's kind of overplayed and everyone does it. Yeah, you are right. It's not as special, but these two made it special. The match ended with obviously Rock getting the win, and afterwards he's whispering something to Steve Austin. This is real life stuff, not part of the storyline.
Yeah,
Earl Hebner kind of crawls over so he can listen in, and The Rock pushes him off. He's like, "Listen, this is a moment for me and Austin." In later years, they said, "Listen, we're not going to tell anyone what we said." And then in later years, they came out and said, The Rock was like, "Listen, I love you, man. Like, respects for everything that we've been through and all that stuff." And you can
yeah,
see like Rock kind of puts both his palms on Austin's chest at some point as kind of a sign of like, "We've done it, bro. We've done it. We've
yeah.
got
We
to the
did it.
end. Like, we did it. Thanks for everything."
Yeah, it's like not going to be the same kind of thing. Like, it's kind of emotional,
Definitely.
isn't it now?
I know. Right,
Think of that.
main event time. Brock Lesnar going up against WWE champion Kurt Angle. And again, let's go back to those little tidbits. Kurt Angle before this match, the WWE, they thought Kurt Angle, he's done. He can't wrestle anymore. So they put him in a match against Brock Lesnar on SmackDown. It was supposed to only go about 10 seconds, and Lesnar was supposed to win the title, and then they'd recoup from there and do something else at WrestleMania. But Angle said,
Jesus.
"No, I can do it. I'm going to stick with it." We found out later on that they'd end up letting Angle go a couple of years later, but he kept hanging on. He's suffering for it now. But then we had this match. Angle versus Brock Lesnar. Carl, take it away.
I mean, Brock for me is like one of my sporting heroes. I just think like him as an athlete itself, like brilliant to watch. Like what he does in the ring for the size of the guy he is, like, it's just like no other. And I feel like this is like the definition of just like watching two wrestlers from like backgrounds of amateur wrestling and technical. Like it was just brilliant to watch. And like obviously, like I think the moment people talk about was I think it's shooting star press Brock tried. Obviously, he's done it in the past and
That's the
stuff,
one,
but like I think it was like you're not really used to like someone like that kind of like climbing to a top rope.
I
To do
mean,
a
when you
move.
say someone like that, let's make it explicitly clear. You mean someone who's 6'3", someone who is 19 stone. You heard me correct. He's 19 stone.
He's more than that, isn't he? I think he's
Well,
like 20 something.
well, yeah.
Well,
When he's wrestling, yeah. Sorry, yeah, you're correct. I'm going off his UFC when he has to cut to 265.
yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, when he's in WWE, and he doesn't have to weight cut. Yeah, of course he'll be up there in the 20s. But yeah, let's go. 20 stone and 6'3", and he's gonna go and do basically a somersault off the top row onto another human being. What happened next, Carl?
Well, obviously it didn't work out how we wanted to because it was kind of mad as well. Like I think this was one of the first moments as well where I kind of looked back and felt like yeah, like maybe it was scripted because he started walking up to the top rope and I was kind of like because I remember just sitting back watching the match and then like I leaned forward like what's going on here like and he's climbed to the top rope and then yeah he's just attempted this like mad move and didn't execute it because like he ended up nearly breaking his neck.
Yeah,
Didn't
for
get
anyone who's
nowhere near
not
him.
seen it, you can find it on YouTube, and I insist you go look at it. But basically, Brock Lesnar stood standing up on the top rope. Yeah,
Yeah,
his feet are about, let's say, 4 or 5 feet in the air. he jumps and he twists upside down. And then as he twists upside down, he's trying to rotate and land on his belly, but he doesn't get the rotation right, and he lands square on top of his head. Someone who is 20 stone at this point, maybe even more, lands square on his head after jumping up, flipping himself upside down from a height of probably, let's say, about 11, 12 foot in the air. Oh my God, it's absolutely ridiculous. And when I was watching it the other day, I knew what was happening. Because obviously this happened a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
And I was watching it kind of behind my fingernails, chewing my fingernails, like, oh my God, I can't watch. And even at the time, when I very first watched it, because I wasn't watching wrestling at the time, I'd heard about this stunt gone wrong. So I knew what happened. But even then, I couldn't believe what I was watching.
It was mad because, like, I've got his book, Brock's book, and he is like a bit, he talks about that particular moment, and he said, like, the buckle at the top where he has his feet on, it's just like dripping with sweat, like it's wet, so like he kind of like slips, and it's and I've watched like videos of him like back in the early days before he came to WWE, like he executed it perfectly, like he just flew through the air like he was not even like he was 100 pounds or something. Like, it's absolutely crazy.
He like floats through the air, doesn't he? That's the mad thing. When you watch him do it, he's so graceful as well. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Like, you forget like he's this absolute tank of a guy. Like when he does it, and he actually he was concussed, and I think he pretty much like fractured his neck as well. But he carried on. Obviously to finish the match. I mean, that just shows how much of an athlete he is. Like.
Yeah, you can see it in his eyes. He's absolutely gone. He's properly concussed, and you're looking at it, you're feeling so bad for the guy. But he's a real life monster, Brock Lesnar. For those of you who don't know, again, Brock Lesnar in real life, he's not a nice guy. He self-describes himself as a bully in real life. He says he doesn't like people, he doesn't get along with people, and this really comes out in the end because we see the backstage footage afterwards of all the doctors trying to help him, and he's pushing them off. He's like, "Get the fuck off me!" And this is stuff that was made for a documentary. It wasn't made for the storyline TV. So I think Brock Lesnar doesn't get the credit he deserves because he's been in the WWE for so long and he debuted in the WWE. I feel like people really discredit him, but he is a proper kick-ass badass. Like, not only is he mega athletic, not only did he like go leave and become a UFC fighter and then win the UFC heavyweight championship after about 3 fights in mixed martial arts, but also he almost made the bloody Minnesota Vikings NFL team as well after not playing American football for years. That's absolute madness. This guy could pretty much do whatever he wanted, and the way we saw him fly off that top rope wouldn't surprise me if he could go to the Olympics and win a bloody belly diving contest, whatever they're called.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of mad because when you read about him, like when he came out of WWE, the first stint, like there was like NFL, like there were so many. He named like I forgot who it were, but he named like 5 like sporting brands who wanted him. Because of how like talented and athletic he was and stuff. And I think maybe people don't give him it because of like since he's been back, he does stuff on his own terms. So people get like pissed off at the fact that he'll only wrestle when he wants. Like he doesn't take it seriously. Like he's not as like Hollywood stars where like he's on the road all the time. He just does what he wants, kind of thing. But you know, you've got to give him the respect for the actual athlete he is. Like,
I mean, you're right. The wrestling fans themselves, they shit all over him because he is part-time. But like the people outside of wrestling, they just think he's a bit of a joke because he's this wrestler guy, not realising how proper badass he is. And you don't really want to be walking down a dark alley and bump into Brock Lesnar when he needs a $5.
Anything like, have you got a $5? Just take my clothes, mate. Take everything I've got. See you later.
Throw you through the wall.
Yeah, literally, it'd be like Terminator, you know, when he comes up to you in this Judgment Day. Like, we've seen Terminator 2, Judgment Day.
Yeah.
And that guy, and he comes over and he's like, I want everything. And that guy has to say please. And then he puts the cigar on his chest and he just stands there. That's Brock. And you'd be like, what the hell's going on here?
Doesn't he say something like, I need your motorcycle and your gloves?
Yeah, he's like, I need your clothes, your boots, and your motorcycle. And he just goes, like, everyone laughs and he just goes, you forgot to say please. And he just, like, puts the finger out and everyone goes, ooh, and he just doesn't move. And then the guy goes, what the hell? And he just grabs his hand and he goes, wah! And he just breaks his arm. And I'm like, yep, that's
Brock. Brock's a real life cyborg. He really is. He is that guy. But this match with Kurt Angle, like we mentioned, like he flew through the air and like landed on his head.
Yeah.
Like this was one of those matches where they blended the realism with reality again. Two guys with that real life wrestling pedigree. We're not talking about scripted wrestling. We're talking about proper athletic amateur style wrestling, the Greco-Roman style. Kurt Angle, Olympic gold medalist 1996. Brock Lesnar, NCAA, which is the highest accolade for like youth wrestlers in America. I think he won that in about 2000, 2001.
Yeah, it was mental. Like when you look at it, because obviously reading through his book, like he had a record of like 55 wins. He lost like 2 or 3. He had such a hunger like to be the best, and like same with Kirk, and like that just proved like in this match, like you're watching two of just absolute animals and what they can do in the ring.
Yeah, it was an absolute beast, and like all in all, this card it was a very, very good show, but a fantastic WrestleMania card, a fantastic wrestling show. And it has got the best talent, like we touched on at the start. It has got pretty much the best talent of our lifetimes here. Who've you got? Undertaker, Rey Mysterio, Big Show, Matt Hardy, Trish Stratus, Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, Shawn Michaels, Booker T, Triple H, Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, The Rock, Steve Austin, Brock Lesnar, Kurt Angle. Any one of those people realistically could main event a WrestleMania.
Yeah, like I'm pretty sure like majority of them have, to be fair, like they've all won pretty much everything in the industry as well to like put himself up there with one of
And
like...
not just that, you even had on the pre-show, you had the Dudley Boys with Lance Storm and Chief Morley against Kane and Rob Van Dam. RVD at the time was one of my favourite wrestlers. Kane, absolute classic guy. You've got top to bottom an unbelievable lineup, and that's what really makes me feel frustrated for the Undertaker's match. Like there could have been so much more. We could have seen Undertaker versus Flair, who was on this. Could have had Undertaker and Kane versus the Dudley Boys, Brothers in Destruction versus them. Anything could have happened here.
It's mental, like you said. It's just endless talent, and it's just like touching on them guys you just said. Then you're like, Jesus Christ, like guys who have won, WWE World Heavyweight Champions, like like years after this, like so. Yeah, 100%. It's like if not the best kind of like talent WrestleMania, and like one of the best WrestleManias ever, like to grace the sport. To be honest,
they even could have had what I think is the biggest missed opportunity of all time in pro wrestling. Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Hulk Hogan. Both guys were on the card. Don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed both guys' matches here, but if we could have had Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Hulk Hogan, the two biggest names in the history of pro wrestling, that would have been insane. We could even, because The Rock would have been free then, we could have had The Rock versus Ric Flair. We could have had Undertaker versus Vince McMahon. There's so much that could have gone on.
yeah. Like did even like Rock Shawn Michaels as well? I don't think they ever.
No, they never.
Event, did they?
I think they might have done it at the start of Rock's career, very possibly. But I know, again, I don't think they did.
Yeah, like you said, there could have been so many. Like Brock versus Stone Cold as well. That was even meant to happen before Ric Flair stepped in. Like I think on one of the SmackDowns.
It was, yeah, just before King of the Ring 2002.
Yeah, so it was like, yeah, you mix it around and like you could just have so many matches. Like it's insane. Like even Vince as well. Like you could put him against anyone like at the time, like and he'd sell it well.
Definitely, this is one of the other things as well. Is Brock Lesnar was only in the WWE for 2 years. That's ridiculous. He was only in the WWE for 2 years in that initial run. The day after WrestleMania 18 up until WrestleMania 20. 2 full years he spent in the WWE. So this is really his only proper WWE match during his entire run, because we kind of can discard the last one against Goldberg because that was a bit of an abortion, wasn't it, really?
Yeah, that was... I mean, the only good thing about that match really was Stone Cold being a referee. I think like people just really only remember that match for that reason. And he basically like stunned them both out the WWE, which was...
yes, he did.
And it was... Yeah, and it was like... It was I mean, was it a shame or was it... I mean, you're just talking about two powerhouses, and I think it was just never going to be a good match. It was just kind of the thought of it, really. Like, oh, what if these two like collided? But I think they built it up too much, really, because they knew they were both leaving. But yeah, it definitely didn't pay off. It was absolutely shocking.
Definitely. Right, so we've come to the end of the show, WrestleMania 19, Carl. So if you could rate it out of 10, what score are you giving this show, WrestleMania 19?
Oh, I'd have to go all in. I'd have to give it a 10. Didn't
Wow, you
disappoint
went
one
for
bit.
all in with 10. I suppose to you,
I
it
am.
holds a really close sentiment to you. 'Cause it was like the first real show that you watched, wasn't it? Whereas
It was, yeah.
Mine was Survivor Series 93, which is an absolute pile turd, but whenever I watch, I love that as well, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
This wasn't a pile of turd, though. This was a very, very good show. I did enjoy it. I'd probably give it about an 8 out of 10, maybe 8.5 out of 10. Really
Yeah.
good, solid show. Just a couple things in there, like the Undertaker match I'd change. Cruiserweight title match was a bit meh, so was the women's match. But besides that, we had a really, really decent show here. Carl, before you go, is there anything that you want to plug?
I mean, when we can, we need to get together and obviously create a Sprite and just get in someone's garden and just, oh hell yeah, you know what I mean?
Oh,
Just,
that's true. One time when we can get free, me, you, message a couple of the boys as well, try and get them all down. Creative Sprite between us and get the hell yeahs going. Absolutely.
get some. I mean, not to leave the women out, so we're not sexist, but yeah, we'll get some women in there as well. Like they can drink a beer and bang, Stone Cold Stunner, not expecting it. Right.
I like how you went. Yeah, the men can come and they can drink, but then the women can come and we'll have to be physically violent towards them because
just have to show them.
Because it's not allowed in the WWE anymore. Carl's views are his own.
Yeah, sorry about that one.
We all know you're joking and you're playing around.
Yeah,
You want to
I do.
stun anyone who's in front of you,
No,
man,
I do,
woman,
I
or
swear to
child.
Mother, brother, girlfriend, if I had one, definitely.
You can't stun imaginary people, Carl. Come on.
No, to be fair, just a quick one. I did actually like my ex like 5 years ago. She was like 5 foot, and like I hid behind the door when she had a shower once, right?
Christ's sake, I can see where this is going on.
Yeah, like I just, I don't know. Like we was like play fighting before that, and then I just thought like I just like continue it when she came back from the shower, not expecting it, and like Jesus Christ, I speared her. And yeah, I took her off her feet rapid. Didn't talk to me for the rest of the night. Hurt her, to be fair, a little bit, but
I'm not surprised. You're a bloody big fella to a 5 foot girl.
yeah, not gonna lie though, I'd do it again. Jesus Christ.
And that is the inner wrestling fan in all of us. It can turn you quickly into someone who's willing to just attack all the people that you love.
Indeed, yeah. Probably why she's not with me, to be fair, so yeah.
Oh, we've gone down a dark route there. I think we should cut it off before Carl turns this into a counselling session.
So thank you very much for listening to the first ever episode of the Do You Remember podcast, ladies and gentlemen. If you could all give the podcast a like, subscribe to it. It's all completely free. All we want to do is just give you something free to listen to during these times and take your mind off everything. So Carl, thank you very, very much for joining me.
Again, I've been Karl Porter. Thank you very much for having me. And like you said, subscribe and like Adam and War. Peace out. Adam and War. No recording live. We're going to get the hell out of here right now.